Two of the UK's leading improvisers. Following two critically acclaimed seasons in London and Edinburgh, they're now taking their show around the UK, and you'll recognise Paul from being a long-standing panellist on things like Have I Got News For You, and Suki from her stellar improv career. What a pleasure to welcome Paul Merton and Suki Webster to
Thank
the
you very
show.
much for having us today. Thank you. What a lovely day to be in London.
And it is a lovely day to be in London. Funny enough, I was in Dorset for the first time at a wedding at the weekend, right. And I was so do you mind if I indulge myself for 1 minute by just and I was driving along and I'm a working tourist here, as you can appreciate, driving along, and then the field on my left, Claire, who was with me, said, I think that's Stonehenge. I said, no, Stonehenge is like this built by the giants. It's like we're meant to be, Lilliputians to this Gulliverian, beauty. And I think it must be a set, or they're making an ad or something. But have you passed Stonehenge?
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
do you know what I mean by that?
I know, because you're quite far away. You expect it to be much more impressive than it is.
Really.
Yeah.
And it's funny because expectations are such, and then you see it and you go, crikey,
I think if you're standing right next to it, then you get a sense of the scale of it and how heavy those stones are. But from a distance, it's not impressive at all, is it?
I might have been having a Father Dougal moment about near and far away.
Or
I think.
being in Spinal Tap.
Definitely Spinal Tap is an issue. How are you both doing? So the shows you've had a stellar run, as they say. How's it all going?
Oh, we've had 2 fantastic runs at the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
So it's great now to be taking it around the country. And, we've been doing improvisation together for a long time.
Yes.
We're excited, aren't we?
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. Our tour starts in about a week and a half, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
And, because it's improvised, every show is completely different. I have been in plays in the past where you have to get it right every time, and that's a certain pressure. But with the improvisation, there's no chance of ever getting bored or tired, because we've got different people with us every night, and every game is always different, so it's great fun.
Yeah, that's intriguing. The idea of being, if you're in a play, it's a script, and you got to watch your lines coming and what have you. But it's probably like being in it's like a live situation or recorded. Here you are doing improv, and you never know where the car is going to go.
That's it.
So you have a rough agenda, I presume. There's some sort of kind of half-broken GPS system, and then they say, well, you've got to find your way.
Well, just briefly on the idea of doing a play. The thing about a play is, if it's a funny play, you've got to hit that right line. You've got to get that laugh.
Yes.
So that's a concentration. There's a great joy to be had in that. The difficulty is when you're doing it night after night, you've got to kind of keep it fresh. With the improvisation, although you're playing the same games, you're never repeating the same material.
Yes.
People ask us, they say, are you tempted to do something you did the night before? Well, you could do that, but I think the audience would tell the difference. They would know. And also, it's easier just to make it up rather than trying to remember.
Yeah.
If you were trying to sort of do...
It'd be like us coming in tomorrow and trying to repeat this conversation.
Yes, and saying, Stonehenge, wow, it's amazing. It's like Spinal Tap. You go, I think I've heard this joke before.
And it would lack a certain spontaneity.
It would lack a certain spontaneity.
No matter how good you are. So if you were pretending to do stuff that you did the night before, you'd get into an awful bit of trouble. You'd say, hang on, did I do the bit about Stonehenge earlier today, or was that yesterday in Dorset? I can't remember.
Well,
so it's best to do it genuinely.
I've found it recently, as I go to the theatre quite a lot, and whether it's a musical theatre or a great play, the theatres in the West End, they're beautiful. They're architecturally.
Yes.
I mean, you both have worked on these great programs and film programs about documentaries about the birth of Hollywood and acting and Hitchcock and everything. So you know what I'm talking about. But there's something. It's like a portal.
Yes.
Isn't it? When you go through those doors,
really
because they're lost in time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet, they could be a contemporary play. When you see Giant and the Harold Pinter, and you can go and see The Weir in the same theatre that happens on Saturday. There's all these stories being told for centuries.
And I think, perhaps one of the most noted theatre architects is a guy called Frank Matcham. He built the London Palladium and various theatres around the country which still exist. There's one in what's the one?
There's Newcastle,
Buxton Opera House.
Buxton.
And the thing is, as a member of the audience, if you go into a place that feels special, you already feel special before the curtain goes up.
Yes, there's a sense of ceremony and expectation, anticipation.
You feel as if you're in a real place that something important is going to happen. And sometimes you can go to a newish theatre that was built sometime in the 60s that sort of like backs onto a car park, and it's not the same.
No.
It isn't the same.
Part of the difference is, once they had microphones, they didn't have to build spaces that held the sound
That makes sense.
and held the the energy. So the older theatres, they've built in a way that you can almost hear a pin drop even though you're at the back of the auditorium. So they're fantastic spaces.
And the Palladium, which seats over 2,000 people, when you're staying on stage, you look up to the very top circle, and you feel you could almost shake your hand with somebody up there, because they're up there, but they're close, if that makes sense. If that doesn't sound too much of a contradiction. So it feels unbelievably a cozier environment than you think it might do with over 2,000 people there.
And does it feel? Do you feel that on stage as performers?
Oh yeah, it makes a huge difference the space you're in. Because even though now we do have head mics, clip-on mics, it doesn't hold the audience energy in the same way. So there are some rooms we play where you don't hear their laughter immediately, which makes it really hard to.
It's like a satellite delay.
Yes,
and
almost.
Or a bad signal on the phone. You're saying, wait a second, are we funny?
Yes.
You've moved on, they start laughing. Oh,
yeah.
That's a melt. Even I'm melting and I'm not on the stage. I can feel the pain.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's terrible. But interesting you use that word energy, because, and I would never be somebody who'd buy into that story necessarily, but I do more often as I get older. I don't know what that is, but that's for another conversation, and possibly with the psychiatrist. But what I will say to you is, when you go into, if I was going into schools to talk about books or reading, whatever, in Ireland, what have you, that you can tell a bad school or a bad vibe. Same with a hospital, weirdly, but and how it's run by the vibe, by the talk. And equally, in a happier story, the theatre, you can tell. You mentioned that backed onto a car park. None of the design, none of that beautiful architecture, frescoes and all the other bits and pieces. You can tell a happy theatre versus a sad theatre.
Yeah, and I think also, I think we are some kind of alive to those kind of atmospheres. It's like when you go in, you're house hunting, and you walk into a house and you go, this is the one.
Yeah.
Or it's not.
Or flip it.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't need to see much more. You sort of, and it's funny how we, I don't think science can explain that, but we are attuned to that kind of thing, atmospheres or just impressions or whatever, and you think, not for me.
Yeah, it's like a happy house. Like, you all know a couple you don't want to bring for dinner because they fight in front of people.
Yes.
So, and equally, like in a nice theatre, if the house manager is happy and the punters around are happy, it is good vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you see sort of like if the staff are smiling and happy, then you're in a good place.
Yeah, rather the face like thunder. Well, I should mention that for Paul Merton aficionados will know this already, but he's a Waterford man. True and true. Thanks to we got to go to the sunny southeast of Ireland.
Well, my mother's from there. You
have to take out. Did you get your Irish passport as a result?
I was thinking about it the other day because I was filming a TV series and I was coming back from Germany and I had to wait a long time.
Not anymore.
I thought if I get that Irish passport,
you will.
Yeah, I know I can get it easily. So I think I might well apply for it actually.
Because you just go doing paperwork. He's not good at paperwork.
Suki, you look like somebody who does not want to entertain a conversation about Paul's paperwork. We've touched a nerve here, haven't we?
We have.
But the thing is, if we travel abroad, you can't get one. So I'll be off in the EU queue, and you'll be able to.
But I don't have to do the paperwork.
Oh yeah.
No, that's true. No, but he will be in the lounge having a coffee as you're still queuing with the rest of them. This is the Brexit problem, lads.
Well, I think I might well do that.
I think you should.
In the lounge, he'll be at the swimming pool.
In the pool, in the lounge. Funny enough, a guest here recently was Orlando Bloom, who said the exact. He found a granny down the back of the couch from Ireland, and she was brought up into the front of house, and he's getting a passport too. So you never know. But it was Passage East in County Waterford.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And you had your mother's grandfather. Or father, probably James
My mother's
Power.
father, yes, James Power, Jimmy Power, he was probably called, but James was his given name.
Big Waterford name, by the way, Power.
That's
indeed, as you well know. Yeah. And he joined. I mean, what a great story! Joined the British Army in World War One. Left to join
the IRA.
Yes. Now we should remind people that the IRA at that time was very different to the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely,
very different, because all of our grandparents in Ireland were in the IRA at that time.
I mean, I suppose freedom fighter would be a sort of a modern
different
way
type.
But
exactly. Just to clarify, in case people are going, that's a bit weird, but he was a volunteer then, and East Waterford Brigade. But that story is so. It's so illustrative of the Irish story in terms of you join the British Army, you join the Irish Army.
Yes.
It's
well, I think it's sort of like there's some footage of Cork in about 1903, and it's all the Union Jacks on display. And it looks very disturbing to our modern eyes that you should see Cork, a great Irish city. And he sort of he like a lot of Irishmen of his generation, I'm sure, was forced into the British Army. And the terrible story about him was having to fire on his own countrymen in Dublin. In many ways they were sort of kind of radicalised, a modern word, by being in the British Army, and therefore their feelings towards the British, of course, would be sort of like, intensified.
Yeah, and sadly then they started shooting each other with the Civil War, so it was... Anyway, that's for another conversation altogether.
I love,
on a happier note again, you both worked together on these programmes. I mentioned Hitchcock and the birth of Hollywood. And am I right in saying that you worked together? Yes. Because Paul's sporting a Buster Keaton t-shirt this morning, and no, I couldn't not mention it, because I started watching some Buster Keaton. There was a big documentary, and your programmes, you see the majesty in those guys perform. We're talking about Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin, maybe Fatty Arbuckle.
Yeah, okay, and Laurel and Hardy as well. Made some really good silent films, which isn't so well known, but the best of the silent comedies still stand up today.
And why is that? What?
They put a lot of work into them, They sort of like Harold Lloyd was one of the first people to preview a film in front of an audience, and if the audience didn't like it, they'd go back and reshoot the sequence, or they'd cut it, or they'd extend it. When it didn't cost a great deal of money to make a film, you just had yourself, the actors, a director, a cameraman, and that was it, really. You didn't have a huge cast of people, and so they went back and tightened up shots or extended shots, and when the audience laughed the way they wanted them to laugh, that was it. The film would then be released, and it's still, there's a Harold Lloyd film called Safety Last, which some people might be familiar with the image of a man hanging off a clock.
Yes.
I mean, the last half hour of that is wonderful, isn't it?
That was when I was a kid. BBC Two.
Harold Lloyd. A pair of glasses and a smile. Exactly. Come home from school and watch that.
It was on about 5:30, I think, maybe. That's weirdly after Blue Peter, before the news, and the clock. I mean, it was so iconic for a generation. There's people listening to the radio going, "Well, I remember that." But I was always struck by these guys, the work ethic. I mean, they were banging out movies and shows the whole time.
They would make 2 feature films a year easily.
I wouldn't think twice about it.
And when they began, it was all short, so they'd make 20, 30 short films a year. They just roll them out one after the other.
There's 2 books I'd love to recommend to you, or if you haven't already read them. One is I, Fatty, is all about Fatty, our book, written in the imagined voice, but was amazing. And the other one is He by John Connolly, all about Stan Laurel, imagining him in his last days in his condo, looking out at the sea, going and writing, because he used to write letters to his fans, as you know. And John Connolly imagines Stan Laurel looking back and reminiscing, and it's beautiful, very dreamy, but it's stunning. So 2 great reads for people.
I didn't know that one. I should
I think you really love it. But you guys, you're on the tour. The reviews are 5 stars. I'm looking at the reviews for your show, by the way, Paul Merton and Suki Webster's Improv show. Tickets available at paulmerton.com and SukiWebster.com. I think you should go to Suki's, because the paperwork is going to be intact.
You're so right.
I've got a feeling. It's been lovely to see you both.
Well, thank you very much
for coming in to say hello, and I wish you well on the tour. I look forward to coming to see you on a beautiful stage in a gorgeous theatre sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, best of luck.
Thanks for that. Thank you.